Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 2 of MC200. I'm so excited that you guys made it through the first week. I've really been enjoying all of the discussion boards and just seeing how you're interacting with the lesson content. So thank you so much for all the work that you're doing already. This video is going to go over chapter 3, part 1, which focuses on news writing style. News writing and journalism can be very challenging for writers. Journalism requires a reporter and a journalist to do many things all at the same time. You have to be a storyteller, but those stories need to be facts-based, and you need to be able to prove where those facts came from. You have to be able to talk about complex issues in a straightforward yet entertaining way, all while trying to reach an audience with varied interest, education levels, and demographic information. And so news writing can be very challenging and difficult, and that's why we really have to focus on simple writing that matters. Now, if you've never heard of the KISS format of writing, it refers to keep it simple, we're gonna say sweetie, but the focus there is simple. Simplicity in writing is really necessary for media writing. Most broadcast journalists write at a second grade level, so that someone who is in second grade, around 7 to 8 years old, should be able to understand the sentences and the thoughts that you are providing. In addition, journalists should be writing one thought per sentence. If you're trying to use complex sentences and each sentence contains more than one idea, then that is not very straightforward writing. One thought, one sentence. You also should divide longer sentences into shorter ones. A lot of people suggest using 20 words or less per sentence. So as you're writing, make sure you're kind of going back and counting how many words. You might be surprised at how long your sentences can really be. Also, you need to write for the eye. In print and digital mediums specifically, you're writing to keep the format looking clean, making it attractive to read, and making sure that the important ideas really stand out at the beginning. In broadcast mediums, as well as some digital mediums, you need to write for the ear as well. It is really important when writing for broadcast journalism, whether that's radio or television or podcast, that you're writing to have people listen to you, because broadcasting is a particularly audible medium. And you want to make sure that you're removing vague or complex terms that can hold someone up. Really, it's all about helping the reader progress through your story very easily and without much confusion. One of the best ways to do this is by using standard sentence order. Remember last week when we were talking about parts of speech and it was so simple and you guys were like, I learned this in second grade. Well, that's why we went over this, because standard sentence order really involves just using subject, verb, direct object. You're not trying to bring in non-essential clauses, which we will talk about in our AP homework today, but you're just wanting a very simple standard sentence structure. When it comes to paragraphs, you also want to keep it as simple as possible. Having a big block of text prevents someone from wanting to read it. Both of these stories are about Hurricane Laura. One actually comes from NOAA and the other is from a news outlet. So each paragraph should have very similar thoughts. So this big block of text on the left from NOAA, is very difficult to read. It contains a lot of complex ideas all within one paragraph, where the news copy on the right, even though it's a lot more simple, every time that you're getting a new thought or a new idea, the journalist has placed it on a new line, and that is really important both visually and for understanding. Shorter paragraphs are better. In fact, in journalism, a lot of paragraphs tend to be only one sentence long, and that's great. But make sure you're not making your writing too choppy either. You want related ideas to go together in the same paragraph. And once you move to a new paragraph, then you're kind of talking about a new topic or idea. You also need to eliminate unnecessary words. Redundancy is something that we do a lot in writing, such as armed gunman. If the person is a gunman, they are armed. If it's a surprise, it was probably unexpected. So think about the terms that you're using and don't just go to like the way that you talk every single day. Really think about simple, straightforward writing. You also want to take out any jargon, words that are from a profession that don't mean anything to anyone else. For example, if I was telling you about my research and I said, I was just published in the Journal of Communication and its index score is really high. Most of you probably don't know what an index score is. That's something that primarily professors and academics and researchers care about, but the average population would not. So don't use jargon, especially when reporting about current events like fires or um, arrest or crime reports. You also want to avoid journalese. Your textbook does a good job about talking about some of the terms that journalists use that no one really says in real life. The one that always bugs me, so do not put it in your writing, is blaze. How many of you have gone to your friend and said, "Did you see that blaze on 4th Street yesterday?" No, you would say, "Did you see that fire yesterday?" So don't use words that you wouldn't use when talking to your friends. It really should be conversational language. You also want to consolidate as many words as possible. Instead of saying that the officer conducts an investigation into, say, they investigate. You also need to remain objective. Objectivity is an important norm of our profession, meaning it's something that we strive to as a standard of excellence in America. While there are other media formats in different countries that allow for opinion writing, in the United States, journalism is still expected to remain impartial and unbiased. This is especially true at local news outlets, while cable and some other more politically affiliated outlets may allow for some opinion and bias writing. The objectivity norm still remains very prevalent across the industry. How do you remain objective? The first way is don't share your opinions. Those should be left to editorials and commentaries that are clearly labeled as opinion pieces. A lot of times we share opinions without even knowing it because of the types of words that we're choosing. For example, if I say someone is an extremist, that is actually an opinion, regardless of who they are or what their beliefs are. That person believes that they are not extreme. They just believe that their beliefs are normal. So by adding words like extremist or radical, you're actually giving an opinion by the words that you choose. You also need to reduce the number of adjectives and adverbs that you have in a sentence. Remember back to that basic sentence structure where you have your subject, your verb, and your direct object. You try to keep adjectives and adverbs out because a lot of times they give an opinion. Where you may think someone is a famous actor, another person may think they're a two-bit has-been. If you think a cat is cute, another person may think that it's extremely ugly. If you think someone replied thoughtfully, someone else might think that they said something that was crass. So just be thinking about how adjectives and adverbs can kind of color or provide opinion or emotion to the piece where you're really wanting to remove those things from your writing. Another key concept in journalism is called framing. In fact, there's a research agenda called framing theory that suggests how you present a story and the words that you use to tell that message can frame the story in different ways. For example, if I were calling the protests that are happening across the country due to the Black Lives Matter movement protest, that gives you a very different connotation than if I call them riots. And so the word choice that you provide really can slant the way that a story is told. So be very aware of how you are framing stories through your writing. We should always go back to Dragnet. This is Dragnet, in case you've never seen it. The detective here was known for saying, "Just the facts, ma'am." And that's really what journalism is. It's meant to be just the facts. And so you're trying to take out opinions and be as objective as possible. Formatting of news writing changes by media type, just like you will write something differently for your English class versus your journalism class. Even within journalism, the media type actually changes the way that you format and do your writing. And that's something that we're going to cover week by week within this class, is all the different formatting styles for the different mediums. For example, newspaper writes in an inverted pyramid where you're going to put a lot of the broad information first and give lesser details as you go down. Where in broadcasting, you really need to put the most important information first and then provide some of the basic facts and then end it with something very simple. Meanwhile, digital kind of balances these two in a way. It usually provides a very catchy lead and then provides a lot of details, maybe in bullets or listicles. And digital is really transforming the way that broadcast and print writers write. So it's important to know the differences in medium formatting, which we're going to cover throughout the semester. In addition, we really need to get used to convergence news writing, because news is becoming a concept where we think about news as a product. News is something that needs to be sold. It's part of a business, and that doesn't take away the journalistic ethics and obligations that we have as public servants. It just means that the formatting and writing styles need to change and adapt to a more convergent media strategy. For example, for one single story, you might have to send out a tweet. You may have to write text or copy. You need to provide hyperlinks. You may need to do an audio or a video. You may need to produce a whole podcast on a topic. You may need to create an animation. Maybe you even provide VR or 360 formatting within your one story to allow you to tell the story in many different ways. Take, for example, this piece that I pulled from Wire, which is a magazine about technology. They were doing a story about VR meetings where you don't even have to have a headset to attend a work meeting in virtual reality. The journalist who did this piece wrote a headline, they made a video, they produced copy or text, they hyperlinked to a bunch of different resources and information. They created this graphic of what the virtual reality space would look like, and they provided a demo of the virtual reality platform embedded in the story. And then even further down in this piece, I couldn't get it in my screen capture, but even further down, they have a podcast about how virtual reality is shaping the business industry. And so it's really important that we think about all the different ways that we can tell a story within this news as product idea. And that's something that I hope that we kind of convey throughout the semester, that even though all of these styles have different formatting, news writing and the basic foundation of good journalistic writing remain the same. Your textbook on page 39 has a good reporter's guide to news writing style. Since many of you are just beginning to write journalistic stories, these are 10 quick tips that you can go back through your writing and kind of do a checklist. to remind yourself of what are the things that I need to be doing to really keep my story in news writing style. So I thought that this was something that I should point out to you because it is a pretty important graphic. So now we've covered the basics of news writing for chapter 3. In the next video, you're going to discuss how we can respect diversity of many populations within our writing style. And then I want you to have a discussion post about diversity in journalism. As always, remember to be professional and respectful. We have many diverse viewpoints in this class, which I absolutely love. And I think we can all learn from each other because of those diverse viewpoints and experiences. So please make sure that you are keeping your conversations professional, kind, and respectful. And again, that's something that we hold all of our students to under the Academic Code of Conduct, but more importantly, just as good human beings. And finally, you will have homework due. If you go into your workbook for your textbook, go to chapter 3, exercise 3, and you'll do sections 1 through 7. It's important that you challenge yourself to do these pretty quickly. I was able to finish all 7 sections in 3 minutes. And while I don't expect you to be that fast right now, that's the speed that I want you to get at. But if you're taking more than 20 minutes to do this homework, you need to start challenging yourself to work a little bit faster in your writing style, because speed along with accuracy is going to be a key to journalistic writing.